and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show.
Don't touch that.
This is the #1 podcast for real estate investing, and each episode covers what you need to know to find and flip deals right now.
Wow!
Break free of the chains that are holding you back and join us on today's episode. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jason Lucchese, and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show. I am so excited that you are here with us today. I've got a good friend of mine, and I'm not just saying it because a lot of people that you go on their shows and they're like, oh, they're good friends of mine. I've actually known this guy since I think 2010. So we've known each other for quite a long time. You guys probably already know him. He's big on the internet. He's doing some awesome things with helping people. He's been investing for a long, long time. I've got the clever investor himself, Cody Sperber. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. And it's crazy how long we've known each other. When real estate investing online education was just getting birthed.
Yeah, that's true.
That's really when we first started hanging.
And we both got started with doing a lot of distressed, like pre-foreclosure short sale properties.
Oh yeah. The short sale kid.
Yes.
You just got to put a picture of Nathan's head up there, right, when we say that. The good old day.
That's been a long time. Short sales riches. That's been a long time ago. So Cody, for people that don't know you, man, which, you're all over the place on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the social media stuff. So for people that are under the rock, tell them a little bit about Clever and a little bit about Mr. Cody himself.
Yeah. I'll keep this super short and right to the point. I got into real estate and probably started really getting into it through whatever education was back then. It wasn't really online. There was a lot of seminars and workshops and those kind of things. And you would actually read an ad in the back of a newspaper, believe it or not, and then buy a course or watch an infomercial and buy a course, and they would ship it to you, or you go to a seminar. So probably back in 2002, 2003, I started going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what creative real estate investing is. And it took me about a year just dabbling in the education space, just going to seminars and consuming information. And then I finally, and I started wholesaling because I didn't have any money. So I was looking for the fastest, simplest, easiest, low barrier to entry way to get into the business. And when I heard about wholesaling, I was really turned on because, it's the purest form of the no money down deal. So I went down that rabbit hole, and I started getting some deal flow after I got a mentor, and I became a full-fledged millionaire by 26, a multi-millionaire by 28, all through no money down creative real estate. And I started off wholesaling. And at the time I didn't have, I was with my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. We didn't have kids, but she was, a huge supporter of me in the beginning. And then as I was going through the learning journey and it was taking forever to get my first couple deals done, she became not a supporter. And then she became a supporter again once I started getting things working. And then obviously, once I really started making real money, she's now obviously my biggest cheerleader. So thank God, I was able to come out the other end, because real estate's tough, man. The first couple years is a roller coaster of emotions. And I finally got the courage after doing a bunch of wholesale deals to do some rehabs. So I started getting into rehabs. And right around the time I really just started getting somewhat good, the market crashed. And it was dang, I just was figuring this thing out. And now I'm looking around and all my friends are going broke. And I was really lucky because I didn't own a lot of real estate. I was an active, quick turn, quick flip type of investor. So even though I had a bunch of, and I'll still remember to this day, when Lehman Brothers failed, all of my escrows canceled.
Oh, man.
And I remember that feeling of it felt like the wind was taken out of the market. And I just remember waking up and I said, man, today is an odd day. And I read the headlines, and then all of a sudden all my escrows canceled. I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And that's really when I started leaning in towards the short sales, the REOs, the foreclosures. Before then, I was just, really just, a direct marketer, like the We Buy Houses type guys. And then I went down that rabbit hole, and I got pretty good at short sales. I got really good at knocking on foreclosure doors and, all of the distress stuff. And then in 2010, I got into education just because I really scaled the business. I was able to get probably to 1,500 closed transactions through the meltdown, because I was down at the foreclosure auctions, eventually buying houses. I went and raised some money, and we were down at the foreclosure auctions buying houses. And I did probably 1,500 or 1,600 transactions, so many I lost count. And by this time now, everybody around me is coming to me. All my haters that were like naysayers and negative in the beginning, now they all want to work with me. They all want to do what I do. They're all bought in. And so just through my love of real estate and what it's done for me and my family and the lifestyle that it's afforded us, through being a little kid wanting to be a history teacher when I grew up, that was the kid dream, is I don't know why I loved history, and I thought being a history teacher would be a kick-ass job. And then I kind of blended the two together, and that's how the education business was born, just purely out of love of the business and love of teaching. And I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I'm able to take complex concepts and simplify them. I'm also a really aggressive marketer. I'm willing to push the boundaries on marketing and be very clever and creative, out of the box thinking. And that, as that world was colliding, I also got very lucky that I was able to build a really awesome team of good people around me to help me bring this new vision of, hey, I'm going to do real estate and I'm going to run my investing business, but I'm also going to teach real estate, and I'm going to release my software and things that I was using internally in my business out to the rest of the world. And I built a really good team around me. And I think that's just been the key, because now people see me and they're like, wow, you got millions of social media followers and you're killing it. And I see you everywhere in your ads, and you and your son, and you're flipping houses and all this crazy stuff. But I would not be here if it wasn't for my mentor, Lyle, and the amazing team that I built around me, both at my real estate business and my education business. Because, I'm good at certain things. I'm also really bad at a lot of things, and I need a lot of help. And, people assume that it was like an overnight thing. It was over a decade.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. And, for our listeners on here, that's awesome that you shared all that, Cody. That's basically your life summed up in like a couple of minutes. And not everybody knows, everybody sees that iceberg in front of them, but they don't see all the chunks and how deep it truly is and how deep it goes down. And, some people, for their overnight success, takes them 5 years. But, I know you've always been grinding. You've always been a hard worker. I've always seen that and truly have admired that about you, man. You've always been a hard worker, and consistency has always been a big thing for you. Now, let me ask you this. Let's kind of shift gears for our listeners here, because you've trained thousands, if not tens of thousands of people over the years. For a lot of our folks, they're brand new to getting involved in real estate. And you mentioned wholesaling. Where would you have somebody go from that standpoint, from a wholesaling standpoint? They're getting started, no capital. Where would you point them? Like, what direction would that be?
Yeah. So, first and foremost is you got to have the education. I don't like when people get stuck in the education world, but if you literally don't have the foundational aspects of being an active real estate investor down, if you don't speak the language of real estate, if you don't have some basic business and marketing systems, if you don't have some relationships in your local market that you go out and form, it's going to be very difficult for you to get the business up off the ground. And this is a relationship business. This is not a standalone thing. When you're doing wholesaling, is nothing more than finding distressed real estate or distressed people, and then working out a deal to buy their house at a discount from retail. And the only reason somebody would ever sell at a discount from retail is if they're really, really motivated. The house is messed up, or their personal situation is messed up.
Yeah.
And the only way they're going to find you, especially today, it was a little different back in the day, but now it's a very noisy world with all the things happening. People are at like max, like geek out mode right now with social media and cell phones and everything. So you have to be very good and clear on the marketing. You have to be very consistent with your messaging and keep getting yourself out there in your target areas. You got to use data and technology to like help you get that advantage. And so if you have that foundation of getting motivated people that own real estate, that are willing to sell at a discount because they're that motivated to raise their hand and talk to you first, it's fairly simple to show up if you're a normal human being with a heart, to show up and say, hey, let's work out a deal that makes sense to both of us. And when you put their house under contract after you work out the deal and you sign that paperwork is very valuable. Even though you haven't bought the house yet, you still have the ability to turn around during your closing period and either assign your rights to that contract to somebody else, or you can actually do what's called a double close and flip that paperwork onto somebody else. And that somebody else is normally a cash buyer, that's a landlord or a rehabber that's looking for a good deal. And I'm now transcended. I'm both the wholesaler, but I also have a very large rehabbing business, and I buy a lot of property from rehabbers. Because if a wholesaler, from wholesalers, because if a wholesaler goes out and does all the heavy lifting, they go find that off-market deal, they serve it up to me on a silver platter, it's worth me paying $5 or $7 or $10 grand to them for bringing me the deal first. Yeah. And as a rehabber, I want everybody in the market to bring me all the best deals that I need to look at, so that way I can get more rehabs and go make more money. And so it's just a paperwork game. That's what makes it no risk. And so 1 is the education, 2 is the software and the systems and the structure, and 3 is the relationships. Once you understand, and there's a couple key pillars that you have to start to master. Once you understand that it's a relationship business and it's a marketing game, then it's just, okay, I just need to start putting myself out there. So there are free ways and there are paid ways. And money loves speed. And if you have the ability to cut the check, to cut the line or go further faster, then do it. But not everybody has money to start their business or to spend big money on marketing. You know, if I'm lazy and I have a bunch of money, just send out a bunch of direct mail to a targeted mailing list and wait for the calls to come to you, or run Facebook ads and wait for the leads to come to you, or buy leads from a lead provider and the leads will come to you. But if you don't have that ability to just pay for the lead and get it to come to you, you got to go to the lead. And that means driving for dollars. That means DMing for dollars, right? There's a lot of people on social media that you can reach out to through direct messaging. If you're just driving around town, you find old, abandoned, distressed looking real estate, get out of your car, go knock the door, go knock the neighbor's door, take a picture of the front of it, write down the address. And then and you gather intel from talking to the neighbors and stuff. And then when you get back home to your home office, look up on the tax records who owns the property, right? And once you know who owns the property, as long as it's not a bank that owns the property, if it's a homeowner that owns the property, send them a letter. Say, hey, I drove by your house. And then literally, I build a flyer with the picture that I took of the front of the house. I just mail merge the picture of the front of the house right on the flyer. I say, hey, I drove by your house. Here it is. I'd like to make you an all cash offer. Here's my phone number. It's just me and my wife. We'd like to talk direct. We can offer you a great price. And then when you mail that off, and you can mail it like everybody else in a normal envelope, or you can get the card envelope that, put a big Mickey Mouse stamp on there and get your kids to doodle on it, fire it off, get creative, make it look like it's personal. And then when you get that inbound call, set an appointment to go work out a deal to buy the property, or do it right over the phone. But right now with technology and the ability to get a hold of people and to skip trace homeowners and to send mail with one click, back in the day, you couldn't send one mailer automated. You'd have to physically write it down. Nowadays, I could take a picture of front of a house, and there's software that literally you click a button, click another button, it fires off the mailer for 40 cents, and you're on to driving around looking for the next house. If you drove around for 4 hours one day, you might be able to hit 20, 30 houses up with these one-off mailers, you can get deals that way.
Oh, yeah.
And heck, while you're out there, put out some bandit signs, right? Those little roadside signs saying we buy houses.
Yep.
So there's all these different layers and levels of marketing, but with wholesaling, there really is no excuse nowadays. My wholesale operation, I have a team of people that all they do is sit and hit the phones. They never even leave the office. And those acquisitions. What'd you say?
They have their beds under the desk. It just pops out.
They're never allowed to leave. No, but they, I'm gonna show you. Come on, let's just go over. I'll just show you what they're doing. They're actually in a meeting right now, just so you can see.
Oh, this is nice. So this is the clever operations.
Yeah, there's Matt.
What up, guys?
There's Matt.
There's Matt. He's our dispo. Matt's our dispo specialist.
Yeah. Do you guys need help with anything?
This is a podcast.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you're streaming worldwide eventually.
Guys, work hard.
There you go. Right? And so, here's where all the acquisition guys sit. What up?
Nice.
All right, we got a couple of them here.
What's up?
And so, they're just normally all these things are full and they're just banging phones.
Nice.
And, we're big on the data.
Yep.
And so we think about data like motivation layers, right? So right now there's homeowners in Phoenix, Arizona. There's 5 million homeowners here.
Yep.
That's too many homeowners to market to.
Yes.
How do we find the needles in the haystack? Well, we got to look at different layers of motivation. So we know that there's 5 million homeowners. Which of those homeowners have equity, right? So we'll start there. And equity is, for anybody who's newer, is just, the difference between what you owe and what the house is worth. It's the profit that's locked into the deal. Yeah. And so we got to find one who has equity. And then that's one aspect of being able to put together a deal. The second is motivation. So when you have motivation and equity, that's the potential formula for a wholesale deal. And so we look at everybody with equity, and then we start stacking motivation. Well, maybe they don't live in the state. So now they're absentee owners. Maybe the house is vacant, right? So now we're looking at like the U.S. Postal Service and seeing who is registered as, a house that's vacant. Yep. And maybe now we're going to layer in a third layer of like who also is in foreclosure or who also hasn't paid their taxes. And so we stack these motivation layers, and what happens is we drill down from 5 million down to maybe 1,000 or 800 or 400 houses. Well, now we have this targeted marketing that we can put out that's way more affordable, and we can pull that data, skip trace that list, stick it in a dialer, and just have my guys and gals on the phones hitting the phones. And those setters, all they do is comb through every different layer of motivation lead that we've pulled, and each one has their own bank of phone numbers that they're calling, and then they set appointments for the closers. And then the closers go out, lock up the deals, and then it moves from acquisitions over to dispositions. And now dispositions is just working with our cash buyers to wholesale the houses. And then Cody Sperber, I'm now elevated from a standalone real estate investor as I scaled my business and built my team. This is how I went from one deal every few months to then building a external power team around me with virtual assistants and real estate agents and stuff, to now getting some consistency on doing some deals. Then eventually I got my own office. Then eventually I built an internal team around me. And now I'm doing over 6 figures a month consistently, because I have an acquisitions department, a dispositions department. I have a development company that's doing rehabs, and we're cherry picking out all our best deals, and we run our rehabs, and I got 12 rehabs going right now, and it's a machine. That's the end game, is the machine.
No, for sure. And for people that are watching this, either from Facebook or YouTube or wherever they're seeing it, they saw the walkthrough. If you're listening to this from iTunes, definitely come check out the video, because Cody walked us through. But Cody, for folks that aren't at that level yet, I know you kind of just hinted at it. When did it kind of click in your head when you were like, man, the only way that I'm going to scale this business up is by eliminating myself from being inside of it all the time and focus on working on the business. When did that kind of click for you? Because I know you saw success at a very early age. 26, you made 7 figures, and then 28, multiple 7 figures. When did it kind of click for you that, you needed to eliminate yourself from being in the business so much?
Yeah, I can thank the military for that. That was honestly, systems and structure. I was in the Navy for 4 years, and everything is documented. Everything is systematized. They hold you accountable for everything, even shining brass or making your bed. There's a system for it. So I applied what I learned in the military to my real estate business, and I did what most people neglect to do, and that's I spent 1 day a week working on my business. And I did this every day for a decade, or every week for a decade for 1 day. And what comes out of that is standard operating procedures. What comes out of that is you figuring out the best way to do things. And there's a way you do things, and then there's the right way you should be doing things. And you start to identify where the cracks are. And the way I think about business as an entrepreneur is I think about it like a balloon. In the beginning, the only thing that matters for you is to make sales. And sales is like you starting to blow up the balloon. Yeah. And so you're not going to be great at all things in the beginning. You just need to focus on sales and marketing. That's the only 2 levers that matter. Then as the balloon starts to fill up, you have to go around and start working on the business and the standard operating procedures and all the rest of the aspects of the business that most people neglect to ever touch, like all the admin, the operations, that kind of stuff, because as sales and marketing guys, that's not fun to us. We hate that.
Right.
However, it's like a balloon. If it blows up too big, all those little holes in the balloon, even though when the balloon's small, it's not that big a deal. When it blows up, it becomes a very big deal. Culture, if you ever try to build a team, the thing that you need to focus on the most is culture. And the problem with culture is it can go sideways very, very quickly when you don't have the structure. When people don't have the clarity of who they are, what they do, and why they do it, and most importantly, what's in it for them when they do it.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just this evolution of like, I would do a wholesale deal, and it would be like this flood drought where it'd be a long time before I got another one. And then I get really irritated because, when you make the kind of money you can make in this business as a wholesaler, we're talking 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50. I just did a wholesale deal. I made 65 G's.
Nice.
Like, people work for an entire year, sometimes 2, to make that kind of money. I made it on Friday. Like, it's like mind-bending the kind of money you can make. And I'm not saying if you're listening to this, you're going to go out and make this kind of money. In fact, you probably won't. The reality is most people don't, and they quit long before they get their shit together and come out the other end. But the fear and the pain of this flood drought caused me to step back and go, you know what? I have to work on my business. And the first thing is documentation. I have like a very simple formula I want to give you. Get out a Google Doc and literally it has to be simple, and you have to systematize it. So literally get out a Google Doc and just write step 1 for sending out a mass text blast. Log into here. Step 2, open up, click this button. Step 3, do this other thing. And I use either Snagit or Camtasia or Loom, I think is what it's called. Any of these screen capturing tools.
Yep.
So first step 1, document all the steps. Then step 2, I open up the screen capture tool and I walk myself going through it. Right? And I video myself going through it. By the time I'm done, I have a Google Doc with a link at the top that is the Zoom video, or I'm sorry, the Snagit video.
Yeah.
Then I have all my steps, and now I'm pretty much free of that thing ever having to do that again. I can now hire a virtual assistant for $3 or $4 and have them do that function forever from that day forward, where I used to be trapped and have to do it. And what I've discovered is there's a lot of better people, especially in the Philippines and other places, that are much more affordable for focusing on that kind of activity, that should be doing it, that are better than me.
Dude, I'll tell you what, this episode so far, I think we could probably charge $1,000 just for people listening to this episode with all the bombs you've been dropping, man. And these are some huge knowledge bombs. If you haven't been taking notes, on this episode, you are literally missing out on somebody that has a massive operation that's doing big, big numbers. And he's literally just given you the blueprint for where he's been able to start and where he's at right now. It's huge. Cody,
Yeah.
I really appreciate all the transparency that you've delivered on this episode. A couple final things while we're wrapping up this episode. It's been awesome, man. If you would have maybe, what's one book over the course of this past year that you would recommend, and what's a really great book that you would recommend, like it's on your all-time like top 5 list?
God, that's tough. I've been listening to a lot of good books lately. I don't know. Let me go to my book calendar.
Somebody asked me that on a podcast the other day, and I went.
I got all the simple, cheesy ones. You know what I mean? Like, I want to give you a good one. Persuasion is a good book, by the way, by Cialdini.
Yeah.
There's another a negotiation book that I love.
So we had Pitch Anything recently. Covert Persuasion's been good.
I'm gonna pull it up here in a second. It is, man, I got so many good books in here. I've been plowing through books. Oh my God, why? Oh, there's Persuasion. You know what book I loved lately is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. That was a great book. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
That's a great book.
That's one. And of course, Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life. You know, I got to give credit where credit's due. My dad bought me that book when I was in the military. I threw it in my rack. I didn't even pay attention to it for like 6 months. I finally got bored as we were floating around the ocean. Yeah. I picked it up. I read it cover to cover. First time I ever understood what an asset was and what a liability was. And just that perception shift changed my direction because I started asking myself a lot of questions. And as a kid, since I didn't grow up with money, I started feeling like, man, there's been a lot of things that I thought were the way things were, and I need to question a lot of things because, you know, I wasn't being taught the right way to build the financial foundation to win the game.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, schools aren't teaching this stuff. It's up to guys like you, Jason, to bring the heat and, you know, teach us creative ways to build that wealth and to create money in assets and liabilities. I was really bad. Even now, I'm still bad. I mean, I drive a Lamborghini. I live in a mansion. It's like crazyville on how I spend money on stupid stuff. But I make sure that every time I go to buy anything, if I set a goal like I want a Lamborghini, I'll set a goal like, how am I going to get my house business to pay for my Lamborghini? How am I going to use my Lamborghini and all my marketing to pay for the Lamborghini? Yep. So it's because of that book I understood assets and liabilities.
No, and you've done a great job, man. You're honestly in the real estate investing space. You're definitely up there as far as marketing. You're one of those top guys. I'm always like, man, what's Cody got himself into right now? And it's always awesome stuff. And I love the car, man. I love it. Absolutely love the Lambo. I myself, I'm a geek about those types of things too. But
I'll sell you mine right now. You ready? Flipping cars.
Nice, man. Well, for folks that would like to get, Cody has a really cool thing right now. He's giving away all of these contracts that he had his attorney look through. They're thousands of dollars worth of contracts. We've got a link for you in the show notes. It's also noflippingexcuses.com/free contracts. So again, it's noflippingexcuses.com/free contracts. And you could go there, grab your contracts. And Cody, for people that want to find out more about you and Clever Investor, what's a good way for them to find out?
Yeah, and by the way, about those contracts, I have special clauses I put in those over the years that have saved my bacon on deals that I screwed up or things have fallen apart and I lost a lot of money, and I figured out creative ways to put things into those contracts. So those are great, very valuable contracts. My big push right now, I mean, I'm at Clever Investor pretty much everywhere. My big push is YouTube. I'm trying my hardest to put out 3 YouTube videos a week, hardcore training, And so at Clever Investor on YouTube, I would love to earn a subscribe out of you. And if I can bring the heat and get a like and a subscribe out of you, then I've done my job. And I think that's the future. The video training of the future is going to be done on platforms like YouTube. So that's where I'd like to have anybody go.
I'll tell folks right now, if you enjoyed what Cody's shared on this episode, go over to the YouTube channel, research Clever Investor, type it into the little search engine box there on YouTube. You'll be able to find him right away. The guy is delivering golden nuggets on a platter. All you need to do, watch the video and take action. It's amazing information that Cody's, just giving away, which is awesome. I love the stuff that you're doing, Cody. And I appreciate you being on the show. Is there any parting words that you would have for our listeners?
No, man, I appreciate you. And I feel the same way that all the nice things you said about me, I feel the same way about you. I've watched your evolution, man. You've been crushing it. You're always doing creative, cool ways to make money and teach people how to make money. So thank you for having me on. And if anybody needs me for anything, you know where to find me. And, if I'm ever in Indianapolis next time, I'll take you up. We'll go grab a drink somewhere.
Yeah, that sounds like fun, man. Awesome. Well, if anybody needs anything, go over to support@jasonluchesi.com. Again, that's support@JASONLUCCHESI.com. But other than that, thanks for joining us on today's episode. Make sure that you subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a comment. We'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye now.